5 reasons why you may actually need a fuse board upgrade. Okay, let's get started. Number 1, it will normally be the case of a lack of these. Now this is called an RCD module. It's a residual current device. Basically, this thing, this nice little trip switch here, is what will protect you against electric shock, death, fires, all of that bad stuff, all that stuff that makes people cringe and why electricians charge the money they do in the first place is all because of these devices. Now, chances are, if your property is anything before, I think it was 1984, you were the original electrics, then it won't have one of these anyway. Now, these are mandatory on certain circuits. Not all, it's recommended for all, but they are actually mandatory on certain circuits, such as electric showers, ground floor sockets that can supply basically anything can be plugged in to supply anything outdoors. Straight away, they require it. What you may have is you may have one of these. So this is a 16th edition fuse board, the internal parts of a 16th edition fuse board. Now these, as you can see, have a single RCD protecting the socket circuits and anything sensitive. Now you may find that even though one of these was early 2000s, it may still fail because you haven't got RCDs on the lights. Now, if you've got certain circuits, like bathroom lighting, for example, and it's not the correct IP ratings for the equipment for the room, you may need RCD protection on it. So that could be another reason why a fuse board upgrade may be beneficial. So all circuits have the RCD protection in the event of a worst case scenario. Okay. Number 2 of why you may need a fuse board upgrade is you have very old circuit breakers like these. Now chances are, if you've got these, you won't have RCD protection either anyway, but if you're unsure, anything like this was 1966 to about 1983-ish. Yeah, so these are rewirable cartridges. As you can see, I don't know if you can see actually, in the back of there's a bit of wire. It's called fuse wire. And that's what protects. No different to what these are. In the event of a fault, that fuse wire will break. Sort of how these trip out and your modern MCBs trip down. Any signs of these will probably indicate that it's the fact that they're old normally, that they need to be replaced. And particularly with these, what you'll actually find is the breaking time of this is a lot slower than what the breaking time of modern devices are. So modern devices, I believe, trip in always under 0.4 seconds. Which, trust me, from experience of getting electric shocks multiple times in my job, 0.4 seconds is a long time to be holding onto cables anyway. Now these, I believe, trip in about 1 second, which is a massive time difference. Now, regardless of the electric shock factor and the chance of death, you've also got the fact that if you've got a potential fire, that's enough time for the fire to actually start. And then, no more roof, basically. What else we got? Number 3 would be the material of your fuse board. So this is, in the words of Art Attack, one we prepared earlier. Well, we didn't actually. We actually ripped it out last week. It was an existing property. As you can see, this one's actually made of plastic, and they recommend they're all made of metal nowadays. The reason for that, and this is a metal one, the reason for that is because of fire. So what actually happened is about 10 years ago, no, 5 or 6 years ago now that the regs changed. It used to be the fact that DIYs particularly, and people that weren't actually qualified to do fuse board changes, were doing their own fuse board changes. So look at you. And what they were doing, the main switches, they weren't tightening up the terminals enough, and they actually caused fires. So what happened is, because the old board was made of plastic, the fire started, melted straight through the fuse board, and set fire to the rest of the house. So the good thing about metal is that if a fire starts, it's contained within the metal board, especially when this lid is down, which means the fire can't spread. And it also means eventually the fire will be starved of oxygen, which will cause it to die out. So that's why we changed to these. Now they're still only recommended except in certain areas, but if it's a fire escape route, for example, you would definitely want to consider having one of these as metal. And just for that extra peace of mind, really, especially if you've had an old fuse board that's had a lot of modifications to it, a lot of adjustments, then it is definitely recommended for one of these for that extra peace of mind. Particularly if you've got the older fuse boards. Anything, I believe, the 13th edition boards were made of wood. Yeah, the back of it was made of wood with a plastic front. Then they moved to plastic/metal. Then they moved from metal to plastic, and now they moved from plastic straight back to metal again. But a better type of metal. It's 100% metal now. Apart from the circuit breakers, which are plastic, but they're contained within the lid. Okay, what number are we on? 3, 4. Regular testing. Now, somewhere on your fuse board should be a little sticker, which these don't have, that says the date it was last inspected and tested. They recommend that testing is performed every 5 years on properties. I mean, now it's actually mandatory if it's a rental property to have testing done every 5 years. This is known as an EICR, but what it basically tests against is the integrity of your property in modern conditions. So not when it was first installed, but if it actually meets regulations now. For example, you could have an RCD module in, could be completely fine, but if you haven't been testing the button regularly as the property owner, then this module might not actually trip out as required, which means it's going to fail. It's pointless having an RCD if it's not going to operate as needed to stop a problem. You may find you have fault finding, you may find you have open circuits, you may find you have irregularities within the system. And so regular testing should be done every 5 years to make sure your property is fine. Now, chances are, if you've got any one of them boards, testing might have been done at least in 15 or 20 years. So I think you can guarantee that you will probably need a fuse board upgrade in that sense, along with some other remedial work. And fifthly, sorry, just checking my notes because I'm terrible at forgetting. Fifthly is, what do you know? There isn't a fifth one. Oh no, there was a sort of linking back to the testing. Fuse board upgrades, basically overall, are recommended to be replaced every 10 years to meet newer regulations. Now, the first thing you need to understand is regulations are only there for your safety. That's all it is. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of regulations that I don't agree with. There's a lot of regulations that seem very petty and like it's just money grabbing and stuff like that. But what you need to understand is the regulations have only come in because someone, somewhere, has caused injury or death by not having these regulations in place. Okay? So, in order to keep with compliance, safety rules change, and quite rapidly so as well, with the advancements of technology within the industry, or with electric vehicle chargers, surge protection, AFDDs, solar, renewables, all that area is it's new technology, pardon me, and so we need to keep up with the new safety rules. So yeah, keep that in mind. If you haven't had a fuse board change in the last 10 years, there's a good chance that there'll be at least a bunch of recommendations on it to make sure that you're compliant now. But yeah, all in all, that's all it was. Just a quick little video of 5 points that you should probably look for in your own property. And if you've got any of them missing, then there's a good chance you'll need a fuse board upgrade. So yeah, hope it's been helpful. If you'd like to like or subscribe to the channel. They'll always help us grow, help us reach more people to make them aware of electrical rules with fuse boards. And somewhere on the screen, whether it's, I don't know, there'll be a link to another video for more information on your fuse board. So yeah, thank you very much. All the best. See you later.